Welcome to Sleepless Historian. If you find comfort in our gentle explorations, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. And remember to turn on loop so you can drift deeper into our tranquil journey. Now, let us settle into a serene atmosphere. Dim the lights around you. Allow the soft shadows to embrace your space. Take a moment to adjust your pillow, to nestle deeper under your blanket. Breathe slowly, in and out. As we prepare to uncover the utterly dull history of medieval nightly nap time regulations, picture a gentle, sunlit castle courtyard, where knights clad in armor would pause their chivalrous pursuits for a brief respite. In the midst of tournaments and noble quests, there lay a structured routine governing their moments of rest. These regulations, often overlooked, dictated precisely when and how a knight could recharge his energies, ensuring he was well rested for the next gallant endeavor. We will explore the minutiae of their daily schedules, revealing how the rhythm of their lives was intricately designed. Little by little, we will delve into the specifics of approved rest periods, the gentle art of napping between duties, and the etiquette of silence during a siege. Imagine knights, weary from battle, taking measured breaks, all the while adhering to strict protocols to avoid the embarrassment of snoring in the presence of We will observe the careful calculations of time spent resting, often ranging from a mere 20 minutes to a full hour, depending on the day's duties. Slowly and gently, we will examine how these practices not only ensured their well-being, but also reflected the values of chivalry and honor. As we meander through this dull yet fascinating topic, allow yourself to relax. Let go of any tension in your shoulders. Breathe in deeply and exhale softly as we embark on this soothing exploration of medieval nightly life. As we continue our exploration into the utterly dull yet strangely comforting history of medieval nightly nap time regulations, let us consider the precise moments allotted for rest. Each day, knights would follow a meticulously crafted schedule. This schedule was often synchronized with the natural rhythms of the sun. The rising sun would signal the beginning of daily duties, while its descent would indicate the appropriate time for repose. Knights would typically wake around the break of dawn, their bodies still heavy with sleep. They would rise from their simple straw beds, often adorned with little more than a woolen blanket. A quick morning ritual would follow, perhaps involving a wash at a nearby basin. The cool water would awaken their senses, preparing them for the day ahead. After attending to their morning needs, knights would don their armor. This process could take a considerable amount of time. Each piece of armor, from the greaves to the helmet, required careful adjustment. It was essential that every component fit snugly, providing protection without hindering movement. This attention to detail would take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the complexity of their armor. Once properly attired, they would gather for a morning meal. This meal would usually consist of simple fare. Bread, cheese, and perhaps a bowl of porridge would sustain them until the afternoon. The act of sharing this meal fostered camaraderie among the knights as they discussed the duties ahead. Meals were taken in silence, with an appreciation for the nutrition they provided, and this would set the tone for the day's endeavors. After the morning meal, the knights would engage in various activities, often dictated by the lord of the land. This could involve training exercises, practice with swords, or strategizing for upcoming battles. The structure of their day kept them focused and disciplined. It was during this busy schedule that the need for rest arose. Knights were permitted brief periods of respite. These moments were not merely indulgences. They were considered essential for maintaining peak performance. After several hours of demanding activity, a knight might find himself retreating to a quiet corner of the castle or a shaded area in the courtyard. The regulations specified that these short rests should last no longer than 30 minutes. This was deemed optimal for recharging one's energy without slipping into a deeper sleep. Knights would often use this time to sit quietly, perhaps leaning against a tree or resting on a bench. They would close their eyes and let the gentle sounds of the surrounding environment soothe their minds. Resting was not merely about closing one's eyes, it was an exercise in discipline. Knights were trained to find comfort in stillness. They took care to position themselves in such a way as to avoid the embarrassment of snoring. The art of remaining silent during these moments was considered a mark of a true gentleman. If a knight happened to drift off, the expectation was that he would do so without disturbing others. As the day continued, knights would often find themselves engaged in more vigorous activities. Following lunch, which typically featured stews or roasted meats, they would participate in mock battles or tournaments. These activities required considerable physical exertion, reinforcing the need for those intermittent rests throughout the day. Thus, as the evening approached, knights were granted a longer period of rest. This extended break was often about an hour in duration. During this time, they would retreat to their chambers or designated areas within the castle. The chambers, often shared, were furnished simply. A narrow bed, possibly with a feather-filled mattress, and a small table for personal items completed the modest accommodations. Knights would take care to maintain a quiet environment. The etiquette of shared spaces dictated that one must be considerate of others. If a knight needed to rest, he would discreetly signal to his comrades. A simple gesture, such as a hand upon the shoulder or a nod, sufficed. No. In their chambers, knights would often employ various techniques to ensure a restful nap. Some would place a cloth over their eyes to block out any troublesome light. Others found comfort in the rhythmic sounds of the castle, the distant clanging of armor, the gentle rustling of leaves outside the window. These sounds created a lullaby, easing their thoughts and allowing for a brief escape from the rigors of nightly life. Timekeeping was crucial during these rest periods. Each knight would have a small hourglass or a simple sundial, often placed near their resting spot. The hourglass, filled with fine sand, would slowly trickle down, marking the passage of time. Knights were trained to respect this time. When the hourglass emptied, it served as a gentle reminder to rise. The sound of sand falling would echo softly, a comforting rhythm to guide their return to duty. Each knight understood the importance of returning to their tasks, rejuvenated and prepared. As dusk settled, knights would engage once more in evening activities. These could include sharing stories of their day, practicing their skills, or discussing strategies in small groups. They would gather around a central hearth, the warmth radiating through the room. With the flickering light of the fire casting soft shadows, they would reflect on their duties and the upcoming challenges. These moments of camaraderie were cherished, as they provided a sense of belonging and purpose. The rituals of rest and reflection were woven into the fabric of their lives. Each knight learned, slowly and gently, that the balance of activity and rest was essential for maintaining their strength and honor. As we delve deeper into the daily existence of these knights, let your body relax further into a state of comfort. Allow the gentle cadence of this narrative to guide you into a peaceful state. As we contemplate the intricate details of medieval life, we embrace the beauty of simplicity, the power of rest, and the soothing rhythm of a knight's life. As evening unfurled its gentle embrace, the knights would prepare for the ritual of rest. Each evening, after the day's labors and the engaging discussions around the hearth, the knights would gather their belongings and retreat to their chambers. These chambers, modest yet functional, provided a sanctuary from the bustle of daily life. Heavy wooden doors creaked as they closed, sealing in a quiet reassurance that offered solace and security. The chambers themselves were simple spaces. Stone walls, thick and cool, provided insulation against the external elements. The floors were often bare, save for a woven rush mat or a few straw-filled sacks. Each knight would have a small cot, often no larger than 6 feet long and 3 feet wide, draped with a woolen blanket that offered warmth and comfort. Before settling in for the night, there were small rituals to observe. First, the knight would take a moment to organize their equipment. This could include their sword, which was sheathed carefully to avoid any accidents. The sword would rest against the wall, its blade gleaming faintly in the dim light. A small wooden table might hold their gauntlets and other armor pieces, polished and ready for the next day's endeavors. Next came the matter of personal hygiene. A simple basin, often made of clay or wood, would be filled with water. The water would be drawn from a nearby well, cool and refreshing, or heated over the fire if the knight desired warmth. They would wash their hands and face, feeling the coolness bring clarity and calm. This act of cleansing the day away was both practical and symbolic. Slowly and gently, they would wipe their hands on a linen cloth, absorbing the moisture before hanging it on a nearby peg. As the knight prepared to rest, they would glance at the small window, often covered with a simple piece of cloth or parchment. This window allowed a sliver of moonlight to filter in, casting a soft glow across the room. The knight would take a moment to appreciate this quiet beauty. The calmness of the night air would seep into their soul, urging them to let go of the day's tensions. After these rituals, the knight would settle onto their cot. The cot itself was often made of timber, with a simple lattice of sturdy rope or leather strips providing support for the body. Each knight would lie down, feeling the soft woolen blanket envelop them, providing warmth and a sense of safety. In preparation for sleep, there was a small etiquette to observe. Knights were taught to enter a state of tranquility. They would take deep breaths, inhaling through the nose and exhaling slowly through the mouth. This rhythmic breathing became a part of their nightly routine, a way to ease into the stillness that awaited them. The knights understood the importance of silence during these moments. They refrained from loud noises, respecting the need for each other's peace. If a knight was known to snore, there were gentle, unspoken ways to address this. They might employ wooden blocks or soft cloths to muffle the sounds, mindful of the need for rest amidst their fellow knights. As slumber enveloped them, the knights often found themselves drifting into dreams of valor and chivalry. But even in their dreams, the rhythm of their day played softly in the background. Each knight would rise, feeling the weight of their armor, the comfort of their sword, and the warmth of camaraderie. The morning would arrive slowly and gently, bringing with it the promise of new deeds and challenges. The knights would awaken with the first light of dawn, the gentle glow seeping through the thin window. They would take a moment to stretch, feeling the tautness of their muscles relax as they emerged from the cocoon of sleep. Once awake, the ritual of the morning began. The first order of the day was to tend to their personal grooming. A small wooden comb, often made from the antlers of deer, would be used to smooth their hair. The knights would take care to maintain a neat appearance, as presentation was important in their world. Next, they would prepare for the day's tasks. Each knight had a specific duty, whether it was training for combat, patrolling the surrounding lands, or attending to the needs of the castle. These responsibilities were not taken lightly, for they understood the weight of their roles. Breakfast would follow, often a simple meal of bread and cheese, perhaps accompanied by a warm bowl of porridge. The porridge was made from oats, cooked slowly in water or milk until it became soft and creamy. Knights would gather in the great hall for this meal, a time to share stories and discuss the day ahead. As they ate, they would engage in light conversation, their voices low and calm. They would speak of the previous day's training, the challenges that lay ahead, and the importance of rest in their rigorous schedules. Through these routines, the knights understood the value of moderation, balancing work and rest. Each task was approached with intention, and every moment was savored. The slow rhythm of their lives mirrored the peaceful cadence of their surroundings. After breakfast, the knights would don their armor, a process that required careful attention. They would begin with a simple linen tunic, layered beneath their metal plates. The armor would be fastened with leather straps, adjusted to ensure comfort and mobility. Each piece was placed with purpose. The breastplate, the greaves, and the gauntlets, forming a protective shell. As they prepared for their daily duties, the knights could feel the weight of their armor, both a burden and a source of pride. It was a reminder of their commitment to honor, duty, and the chivalrous code they lived by. Once fully equipped, they would gather once again, each knight standing tall, ready to face the day. The mornings were filled with purpose, yet the underlying current of tranquility remained. The peaceful moments of preparation allowed them to center themselves, embracing the day ahead with quiet resolve. And so, the cycle continued. Each day a delicate balance of activity and rest, honor and duty. In the heart of the castle, among these noble knights, the rituals of life unfolded with gentle grace. The simple joys, the shared meals, the quiet moments of reflection, and the cherished bonds of friendship formed the essence of their existence. As we linger in this serene exploration, let your mind drift alongside the knights. Allow the soothing rhythm of their lives to wash over you, inviting relaxation and gentle dreams. In this world of chivalry and simplicity, feel the warmth of camaraderie and the peace that comes from a well-lived day. One enjoy in a way. Yes. As the sun began its slow ascent, illuminating the stone walls of the castle, the knights would often find themselves drifting into the comforting embrace of a brief reprieve. This was not merely an indulgence, but rather a vital component of their daily routine. For, within the medieval framework, the concept of rest held significant importance, particularly for those burdened with the weight of armor and duty. The regulations surrounding nightly nap times were simple, yet precise. Typically, after the morning meal, which was composed of hearty porridge, bread, and perhaps a modest portion of cheese, knights were permitted a short period of rest. This interval, known as the siesta, was usually allotted 1 hour, though some lords might grant a little more, depending on the day's demands. During this quiet time, the knights would seek out their designated sleeping quarters. These chambers, often sparsely adorned, featured a simple straw-filled mattress, positioned atop a sturdy wooden bed frame. The knights would take care to remove their armor, piece by piece. First, they would unbuckle their gauntlets, placing them gently upon a nearby table. Next, the heavy breastplate would be removed, revealing a linen tunic worn beneath the armor. This tunic, while simple, was often embroidered with a family crest, a symbol of identity and pride. As each piece of armor was removed, a sense of liberation would envelop the knights. The cool air of the chamber would feel refreshing against their skin, and they would take a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the tension of the morning to dissipate. With each exhale, they would settle themselves into a state of relaxation. Once comfortably situated on their mattress, a knight would often employ a woolen blanket to shield against the chill of the stone walls. The blanket, woven tightly and adorned in earthy tones, would provide a sense of warmth and security. It was essential to ensure that the room was dimly lit, as too much light could disturb the tranquility sought during these precious minutes of rest. In some instances, a knight would bring along a small wooden device known as a sleeping board. This simple tool, crafted from a single piece of timber, resembled a shallow box and was intended to support the head and neck while napping. The board was designed to keep the knight's posture aligned, preventing discomfort and allowing for a restorative sleep. The art of napping was not solely a personal endeavor. Knights were often advised on etiquette pertaining to their rest. It was deemed respectful to keep the duration of one's nap brief, allowing others their own time to rest. Therefore, the knights would set a small hourglass, filled with fine sand, to measure the passing moments. The soft trickling of sand was a gentle reminder of the time, and as it flowed, the knights would surrender to the soothing rhythm of sleep. In matters of snoring, a knight's dignity was paramount. To mitigate any potential disturbances, certain techniques were recommended. Some knights would sleep with a lightly stuffed cloth placed under their chin, ensuring that their mouth remained closed. Others would practice a form of controlled breathing, inhaling quietly through the nose, allowing for a peaceful slumber. This attention to detail was a reflection of their commitment to maintaining decorum, even in repose. As the hourglass neared its end, the soft sound of sand settling would rouse the knights gently from their slumber. With a calmness that permeated the air, they would awaken, stretching their limbs slowly, feeling the renewed energy coursing through their bodies. This process of waking was not rushed. Knights understood the importance of transition, allowing themselves several moments to gather their thoughts and reorient to the day. They would often rise, not abruptly, but rather with a gradual unfolding of the body, arms stretching towards the wooden beams above. The act of waking was as ceremonious as the act of preparing for battle. Once fully awake, knights would don their armor once more, piece by piece, relishing the familiar weight as it settled across their shoulders. The ritual of getting dressed, though repetitive, was infused with a sense of purpose. The buckles and straps were methodically fastened, each sound echoing softly within the chamber. As they rejoined their companions, the knights would often share the experience of their rest. Conversations about dreams, however mundane, would weave through the air. They might recount the simple pleasure of a dreamless slumber or the fleeting images of a distant memory. Such exchanges reinforced the bonds of brotherhood, allowing them to reconnect before the next round of duties. After their brief respite, the day would move forward with a calm resolve. Knights would gather in the armory, preparing for their next endeavors. Each one would meticulously check their weapons, swords, shields, and lances, ensuring they were in pristine condition. The process was methodical. The sound of metal clinking against metal resonated softly, creating a rhythmic symphony of preparation. The importance of rest was acknowledged at every level of the knightly hierarchy. Lords would often remind their vassals of the benefits of adequate sleep, advocating for the well-being of body and mind. A well-rested knight was a more effective knight, capable of meeting the challenges of the day with clarity and focus. In the midst of these preparations, a gentle routine of stretching would often unfold. Knights would engage in simple movements designed to loosen their muscles, twisting their torsos, rolling their shoulders, and bending at the waist. Each gesture was executed slowly, promoting flexibility and relaxation. This leisurely stretching, a moment of quiet intention, would help to align their minds for the tasks that lay ahead. As the sun reached its zenith, the knights would come together once more, gathering in the courtyard to engage in practice drills. The gentle cadence of their movements, swordplay, footwork, and strategy was a dance of sorts, practiced and refined through countless repetitions. Each session was underscored by the understanding that their physical conditioning was bolstered by the rest they had afforded themselves earlier. And so, the cycle continued. Rest, preparation, and then action. The harmony of their lives unfolded in a series of gentle rhythms, each day a reiteration of the balance struck between duty and repose. This intricate dance, though simple, was layered with meaning, echoing through the stone halls of the castle. As we drift alongside these noble knights, let us embrace the soothing patterns of their daily life. The art of rest, the attention to detail, and the moments of connection all invite us to relax and breathe deeply. Allow yourself to settle into this rhythm, feeling the gentle embrace of history surrounding you. Drift softly, little by little, into a realm of peaceful dreams. As the afternoon light began to soften, casting gentle shadows across the cobblestones, the knights would often retire to their chambers for a brief repose. These chambers, though modest by modern standards, were furnished with a simple bed, often a wooden frame adorned with a straw-filled mattress. The sheets, woven from coarse linen, were carefully folded and laid out, inviting rest. In these quiet spaces, the knights would take care to prepare for their short naps. A small wooden table might hold a pitcher of cool water, alongside a clay cup, offering refreshment before sleep. The air would fill with the scent of dried herbs, perhaps lavender or chamomile, sourced from nearby gardens, known for their calming properties. Nap times were regulated through a gentle system embedded in the chivalric code. A knight was expected to rest for no less than 30 minutes, but no longer than an hour, to maintain both alertness and vigor. This time frame was carefully considered, as too much sleep could lead to sluggishness, while too little could dull the mind and reflexes. The process of settling in for a nap was deliberate. First, the knight would remove his armor, piece by piece, a process that took several minutes. The chainmail would be carefully unfastened, and the plate armor lifted off, revealing a simple tunic beneath. This ritual signaled a transition from the day's responsibilities to a moment of calm. Once comfortably attired, the knight would stretch gently, releasing the tension held within his muscles. It was customary to take a few slow, deep breaths. Inhale, and exhale, allowing the body to relax. The chamber would be dimmed, with heavy drapes drawn to block the sunlight, creating a tranquil atmosphere perfect for slumber. As the knight lay down, he would often position himself on his back, a common practice believed to promote a restful sleep. The head would rest on a simple pillow, perhaps stuffed with feathers or wool, providing support while remaining comfortable. During this period of rest, the mind would drift, focusing on the soft sounds of the castle, the distant rustle of the wind, the faint murmur of the courtyard outside. Knights were advised against sleeping too soundly, as vigilance was paramount, even in moments of rest. To mitigate the risk of snoring, a source of embarrassment, knights would practice quiet breathing techniques. One method involved gently inhaling through the nose and exhaling through pursed lips, creating a soft, whispering sound. These moments of quiet were punctuated with a sense of duty. The knights understood that they were part of a larger routine, one that echoed through the battlements and reminded them of their responsibilities. After their allotted time, a gentle tap on the door or the sound of a soft bell would signify the end of the nap. Rising from their rest, the knights would take a moment to collect themselves. They would dress again, donning their armor with care, ensuring that each piece fits snugly against their bodies. The process of reattaching armor was methodical, often taking 10 to 15 minutes. Each strap and buckle was adjusted, allowing for both protection and mobility. After donning their armor, the knights would gather in the common area for a light meal. This meal, typically comprising bread and cheese, was consumed in a calm and unhurried manner. The bread, baked daily, was often dense and hearty, a perfect accompaniment to the sharpness of the cheese. The knights would take the time to chew slowly, savoring each bite, appreciating the nourishment it provided. Conversation during these meals was subdued, often revolving around the day's schedule, upcoming drills, and the importance of maintaining physical and mental well-being. The atmosphere was one of camaraderie and shared purpose, each knight aware of the balancing act between duty and rest. As the hour advanced, knights would engage in light exercises, a gentle stretching routine designed to awaken the body. They would gather in the courtyard, moving in unison, their bodies flowing together in a harmonious rhythm. Each stretch was measured, focusing on the shoulders, back, and legs, ensuring that every muscle was prepared for the tasks ahead. This attention to maintaining a schedule of rest, nutrition, and exercise was essential. Knights were encouraged to keep a personal ledger, a simple record of their daily routines, noting how they felt after each period of rest. A small notebook, perhaps bound in leather, would often accompany them. Each entry would reflect on the quality of their sleep, the effectiveness of their breathing techniques, and their overall physical readiness. The ledger was not merely a record, but a personal guide to improving one's chivalric life. Knights would share insights with one another, fostering a sense of community and support. This practice emphasized the importance of rest, ensuring that each knight understood that taking time to recharge was not a sign of weakness, but rather an essential aspect of their calling. The rhythm of the day continued to unfold, each segment flowing into the next. After their gentle exercises, knights would often partake in a quiet moment of reflection or meditation. This practice typically took place in a secluded corner of the courtyard, where they might sit on a stone bench or simply on the grass. Here, the knights would focus on their breathing, allowing the mind to settle. Inhale deeply and exhale slowly. This was a space where individual thoughts could be explored, where worries could be cast aside. In this serene setting, they connected with their purpose and reaffirmed their commitment to their noble ideals. As the day waned, the knights would prepare for the evening meal, another shared experience that offered sustenance but also connection. Each dish was prepared with care, often featuring seasonal vegetables and grains, reflecting the agricultural rhythms of the surrounding lands. The warmth of the hearth filled the hall, inviting everyone to gather and converse. Meals were served on wooden platters, with each knight given a small wooden spoon for their use. This simple etiquette fostered a sense of equality, where each person, regardless of rank, participated in the communal experience. The act of sharing food, of passing dishes, reinforced bonds and reminded them all of their shared journey. As the evening drew to a close, the knights would retire to their chambers once more, the cycle of rest and duty drawing them into its comforting embrace. The soft flicker of candlelight would guide them as they prepared for sleep, reinforcing the importance of the routines they had crafted throughout their day. In these mundane rituals, a tapestry of tranquility was woven. Each moment, each breath, contributed to a larger narrative of honor and responsibility, revealing the subtle beauty of a life well lived. And so, little by little, they would find rest once more, allowing the gentle rhythms of the night to envelop them. As the soft light of dawn began to creep into their chambers, the knights would gradually rouse from their slumber, a gentle awakening to the responsibilities that lay ahead. The sun's rays filtered through the small, leaded glass windows, casting a warm glow upon the stone walls, and each knight would take a moment to adjust to the new day. The morning routine was simple yet methodical. Each knight would first reach for a small wooden basin filled with cool water, set upon a rough-hewn table in the corner of the room. The basin, often carved from a single piece of oak, was a personal item, used only by its owner. The water would be drawn the previous evening from a nearby well, a task performed by the squire. With careful intentions, the knights would wash their faces and hands, the coolness awakening their senses as they prepared to don their armor for the day. This ritual was not merely for cleanliness, but also a moment to reflect, to breathe deeply, and to mentally prepare for the challenges ahead. After their morning refreshment, they would gather in the great hall for a modest breakfast, typically consisting of coarse bread, perhaps a bit of cheese, and the last remnants of meat from the previous day. Each knight would take a slice of bread, feeling its rough texture against their fingertips, enjoying the subtle scent of yeast and grain. Breakfast was a communal affair, meant to foster camaraderie and a sense of togetherness. They would sit on long wooden benches, facing one another, their bowls resting before them on the sturdy table. The clatter of utensils and the soft murmur of voices filled the air, creating a soothing backdrop to the morning ritual. Once the meal was concluded, there would be a moment for quiet reflection before the rigors of the day took hold. Each knight would be responsible for their own armor, a meticulous process that required both care and patience. The armor itself consisted of multiple layers, beginning with a padded gambeson, which provided protection and comfort beneath the metal. Each knight would don this garment first, feeling the weight of duty settle upon their shoulders. The gambeson was typically made of linen and wool, sewn together with sturdy thread, and it absorbed sweat, allowing for a degree of ventilation. Next came the chainmail, a complex web of interlocking rings that hung heavily from their shoulders. Knights would often require assistance in donning this layer, as its weight was considerable, and the links could catch on the fabric below. The ritual of dressing in armor was slow and deliberate, each movement designed to ensure the knight was fully prepared for the day's endeavors. Once armored, the knights would often seek the advice of their squires, who held in their hands various tools for maintenance and adjustment. A small leather pouch would contain an assortment of items: a wooden mallet for gentle adjustments, a pair of pliers to tighten links, and strips of leather for securing the armor in place. The squires, often young and eager, learned the intricacies of armor care, understanding the importance of each piece. They would be tasked with polishing the metal, using a mixture of sand and oil to restore the gleam of the armor. This process took time, as each knight's armor was unique, bearing the symbols of their lineage and achievements. After this elaborate dressing, the knights would gather once more, forming a line in the courtyard to practice their skills, to sharpen their bodies and minds. Their swords, sheathed at their sides, glinted in the morning light, reflecting their unwavering commitment to their chivalrous duties. The practice sessions were methodical, emphasizing discipline and control. Knights would engage in drills, practicing footwork and swordplay, while their squires watched closely, ready to provide assistance. Each swing of the sword was deliberate and measured, echoing through the still air of the early morning. As the sun climbed higher, the knights would take a moment for rest, a pause in the midst of their training. They would retreat to the shaded areas of the courtyard, where the stone walls offered respite from the heat. There, they would sit upon the cool stones, feeling the gentle breeze against their skin. During this time, conversation would flow softly, speaking of past glories and future endeavors. Each knight would sip from a small wooden cup, filled with refreshing water or perhaps a light ale, savoring the taste of the cool liquid as it replenished their strength. In this moment of tranquility, the knights would also be reminded of the importance of rest. The regulations surrounding nap time were clear and structured, designed to ensure that each knight remained alert and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. See. According to the codes of conduct established by their lords, knights were permitted a brief respite in the mid-afternoon, often referred to as the hour of repose. This break served to recharge their bodies, allowing them to return to their duties refreshed and focused. During this hour, knights would find quiet corners within the castle grounds, or even take to the soft grass of the nearby field. They would lay down upon simple blankets, their armor removed to allow for greater comfort. The gentle sounds of nature would envelop them, the rustling of leaves and the distant call of birds weaving a soothing melody. To facilitate restful sleep, certain guidelines were observed. Knights were instructed to avoid heavy meals before napping, as a full stomach could disrupt the peaceful transition into slumber. Instead, they would enjoy a light snack of nuts or dried fruit, providing just enough sustenance to carry them through the afternoon. Soft whispers would fill the air as they settled down, sharing stories of their adventures or reciting poetry, each word a balm for the weariness that had accompanied their training. They would close their eyes and focus on their breathing, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly, allowing their minds to drift. The etiquette surrounding this hour was clear. Silence was to be observed, and any noise that might disrupt the tranquility was discouraged. Knights learned to respect this sacred time, understanding its essential role in the cycle of their duties. As they drifted off to sleep, they would often employ techniques to ensure their rest was undisturbed. Some knights would practice relaxation methods, focusing on their breath, inhaling deeply, and releasing any tension from their bodies. Others would visualize serene landscapes, allowing their minds to wander to peaceful meadows or quiet streams. Imini. Kai. In this way, the knights would embrace the gentle embrace of sleep, knowing that upon awakening, they would be refreshed and ready to face the challenges of the day. Little by little, breathing deeply and allowing themselves to be enveloped in the calm rhythms of their existence. The hour of repose served not only to replenish their strength, but also to reinforce the bonds of brotherhood among the knights. In their shared moments of stillness, they would find connection, understanding, and a quiet appreciation for the lives they led. And so, as the day wore on, the knights would emerge from their restful slumber, prepared for the tasks ahead, their spirits lifted by the simple act of pausing. As they rose, they would shake off any lingering drowsiness, knowing that they were ready to continue their chivalrous duties, filled with a sense of calm and purpose. Once the knights had risen from their peaceful slumber, their routines would unfold with a soothing cadence. Each day began with a gentle awakening, the soft sunlight filtering through the narrow windows of their stone chambers. The air was cool, and the world outside remained still, inviting them to savor the quiet moments before the day commenced. They would take their time, stretching their limbs, allowing their bodies to ease back into the rhythm of daily life. The first task of the day was to prepare for the morning meal. The knights would gather in the great hall, a spacious room filled with the scent of wood and aged stone. Long wooden tables lined the center, each laden with simple yet nourishing fare. Bread, crusty and warm, would be sliced, revealing its soft, fluffy interior. Cheese, a staple at every meal, was often placed nearby, alongside a pot of honey, its golden hue reflecting the morning light. The knights would take turns pouring ale or mead into wooden cups, the sound of liquid filling the vessels echoing gently through the hall. Each knight would have his own cup, often well-worn from years of use, imbued with the stories of past feasts and quiet conversations. They would take their seats, and with a shared sense of camaraderie, begin to enjoy their morning repast. During breakfast, conversation flowed softly, often touching upon the tasks that lay ahead. They would discuss the day's training, the horses to be groomed, or the weapons to be sharpened. Each knight would be responsible for his own gear, ensuring that his armor was polished and ready for the rigors of the day. Once the meal was concluded, the knights would rise and clear the tables. This would be a gentle process, with each knight taking his turn to carry the empty cups and plates to a designated area for washing. The sound of water splashing into a large wooden basin resonated through the hall, creating a calming atmosphere as they worked together. After breakfast, the knights would engage in their respective chores. Some would be responsible for the horses, brushing their manes with soft, gentle strokes. The brushes would glide easily through the horse's hair, removing dirt and tangles with a rhythmic motion. Each horse had its own personality, and the knights would take the time to bond with them, whispering soft words of encouragement as they worked. Others would turn their attention to the armory, where swords and shields awaited their careful inspection. The clinking of metal against metal created a soothing symphony, as each knight would meticulously check for any imperfections or signs of wear. They would use a cloth to wipe away dust, ensuring that each weapon was maintained in pristine condition. The process was methodical, each step taken with purpose and care, ensuring that every piece of equipment was ready for whatever lay ahead. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the knights would gather once more, this time for their training sessions. They would don their armor, a process that required patience and precision. Each piece of armor was fitted with care, from the breastplate to the gauntlets, ensuring a snug yet comfortable fit. The knights would help one another, adjusting straps and buckles, checking for any discomfort that might hinder their movements. Once suited up, they would step into the training yard, the ground beneath their feet firm and solid. The sound of footsteps echoed softly as they moved through the drills, practicing swordplay and honing their skills. The rhythm of their movements created a soothing pattern, a dance of concentration and focus. Throughout these sessions, the knights would be mindful of their breathing, inhaling deeply through their noses and exhaling steadily through their mouths. This practice not only helped them maintain their composure, but also allowed them to connect with their surroundings, feeling the warmth of the sun on their skin and the gentle breeze that whispered through the yard. No, wow. As the training sessions came to a close, the knights would take a moment to cool down, shedding their armor piece by piece. Each knight would find a quiet corner to sit, allowing their bodies to relax and recuperate. They would take this time to reflect, to ground themselves before the next task emerged. The air would be filled with the sound of deep breaths and soft murmurs as they gradually shifted their focus inward. After the training had concluded, the knights would return to the Great Hall for a midday meal. The preparations would be simple yet satisfying. A pot of stew would simmer over the fire, its savory aroma wafting through the hall. Fresh vegetables, gathered from the surrounding gardens, would be sliced and added to the pot, creating a colorful medley of flavors. As they gathered around the table for this meal, the atmosphere remained calm and reflective. They would share stories of their training, recounting humorous moments or lessons learned. The gentle sound of laughter mingled with the clinking of utensils against bowls, creating a soothing ambience that wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Oh, once the meal was finished, the knights would take the time to rest, allowing their bodies to digest the hearty food. This period of rest was not merely a pause, but an essential part of their daily rhythm. They would find a comfortable spot, perhaps by the fire, or on a bench in the courtyard, and allow themselves to slip into a light slumber. As they settled into rest, they would focus on the sounds around them, the crackling of the fire, the distant chirping of birds outside, and the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. With each breath, they would release any tension that had built up during the day, feeling their shoulders relax and their minds quiet. Even in this serene state, the knights remained aware of the importance of maintaining decorum during their rest. They were mindful not to disturb others, practicing quietude as they relaxed. Should a knight find himself drifting into a deeper sleep, he would aim to position himself in a way that would not obstruct the flow of activity around him. There were subtle etiquette rules that governed their repose. A knight would always ensure that his armor was stored properly, preventing any clangor that might disrupt the peaceful ambience. Armored knights would often lay their helmets upside down beside them, a small act that symbolized respect for their fellow comrades. In this tranquil space, the knights would allow themselves to be enveloped by the rhythm of their surroundings, the gentle rise and fall of their breath, the soft sounds of nature, and the reassuring presence of their companions created a cocoon of calmness. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the castle grounds, the knights would awaken, refreshed and rejuvenated. They would rise slowly, stretching their limbs once again, feeling the energy return to their bodies. The quiet moments of rest had served their purpose, allowing them to realign and recharge before the evening's duties commenced. With a sense of gratitude for the stillness they had experienced, the knights would prepare themselves for the tasks ahead. They would shake off any lingering drowsiness, knowing that they were ready to continue their chivalrous duties, filled with a deep sense of calm and purpose. Ethan, Daisy. As the sun settled further towards the horizon, the knights would often begin to gather the tools of their evening duties. The evening routine, much like the rest period, was marked by a serene predictability. Each knight would take a moment to assess the tools they might require for the tasks ahead. This could include their trusty swords, polished to a gentle sheen, or their finely crafted shields, each bearing the insignia of their house. While preparing their equipment, knights would methodically check the integrity of their armor, ensuring that every piece was securely fastened. A knight would start by examining their gauntlets, taking careful note of the leather's flexibility, the metal's luster, and the comfort of the fit. The gauntlets would be adjusted if necessary, ensuring an optimal balance between protection and mobility. Every knight understood the importance of comfort in battle, for an uncomfortable fit could lead to distraction. Following this, they would turn their attention to their sword, perhaps the most personal of their tools. Each blade had its own history, its own stories etched into the metal. A knight would hold the sword in one hand, feeling its weight, admiring the craftsmanship. The edge would be inspected, ensuring that it gleamed brightly in the fading light. A gentle cloth, often made of soft wool, would be used to wipe away any dust or residue. This ritual was not just about maintenance. It was a moment of connection, a reminder of the responsibilities they bore. Indeed. Ow. Once the equipment was ready, knights would often gather in small groups, sharing stories of their day, reminiscing about past victories, and discussing the tasks that lay ahead. The camaraderie formed during these moments was invaluable. Knights would sit in a circle, legs crossed beneath them, or perhaps leaning against a sturdy tree. Each would take a turn to speak, allowing the soothing sound of their voices to fill the air. The echoes of laughter and shared memories would mingle with the rustling leaves, creating a peaceful backdrop to their preparations. As the evening deepened, the knights would begin to think about their meals. A simple, hearty fare would be prepared in the castle kitchens. This meal would often consist of root vegetables, perhaps carrots and turnips, boiled until tender. The rhythmic bubbling of the pot would provide a gentle soundtrack to their surroundings. Fresh bread, still warm from the oven, would be sliced, the aroma enveloping the room, filling the air with warmth and comfort. Knights would gather around the long wooden tables, the surfaces worn smooth by years of feasting and fellowship. Each knight would fill their bowl with stew, a simple yet nourishing concoction. The stew would be seasoned with herbs, perhaps thyme and rosemary, bringing a delightful fragrance that stimulated the senses. As they ate, they would take their time, savoring each bite, relishing the taste of communal life. After the meal, knights would partake in a ritual known as the huddle of reflection. This was a time for quiet contemplation, a moment to digest not only the food but also the events of the day. Knights would sit in a comfortable hush, allowing their thoughts to drift like leaves on a gentle breeze. This practice helped to create a calm atmosphere, where the weight of their chivalrous duties could be set aside, even if just for a little while. In the quiet of the evening, they would often reflect on their code of chivalry. Each knight would silently recite the principles that guided their actions, the values of honor, loyalty, and respect. This was not merely a verbal exercise. It was a deepening of their commitment to the ideals they upheld. Once the time for reflection had passed, knights would prepare for the night's rest. They would unwind by donning their night attire, typically a simple linen tunic. The fabric was soft against their skin, offering a comfortable reprieve from the rigid constraints of armor. Their beds would be made up with woolen blankets, thick and warm, ensuring a cozy atmosphere for sleep. Before settling in, knights would often take a moment to express gratitude. This could be a simple gesture, such as a nod of appreciation to those around them. Some might even whisper a quiet prayer, seeking peace and guidance for the night ahead. This brief ritual served as a transition, a gentle way to signal that the day had come to a close and that rest was now welcome. Tea. As they lay down, a knight would arrange their blankets just so, tucking them securely around their bodies. The weight of the wool would provide a comforting embrace, wrapping them in a cocoon of warmth. The nightly environment was designed to be peaceful and inviting. Candlelight flickered softly, casting gentle shadows upon the walls, bathing the room in a warm glow. In this tranquil space, knights would allow themselves to drift into the realm of dreams. Each knight would adopt a sleep position that suited them best, whether on their side or their back, their bodies gradually relaxing into the embrace of their bedding. The gentle rise and fall of their chests would create a soothing rhythm, a soft lullaby of breath that echoed through the room. As they settled deeper into their slumber, they would take care to minimize any sounds that might disturb their companions. A knight might practice controlled breathing, inhaling through the nose and exhaling softly through the mouth. This simple act helped to foster an atmosphere of calm, encouraging a restful night, not only for themselves, but for the entire company of knights. In moments of light sleep, the knights would often dream of past tournaments or distant lands. These dreams served as a reminder of their purpose and the ideals they held dear. The quiet reassurance of their shared experiences would weave through their dreams, creating a tapestry of camaraderie and connection. Yeah. And so, the night would pass quietly, the nights resting soundly, knowing that the dawn would bring new challenges, new adventures, and new moments of brotherhood. Little by little, they would drift further into the depths of peaceful slumber, allowing the soothing embrace of night to envelop them completely. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a gentle glow over the landscape, the knights would prepare for the night ahead. Each knight had his own set of tools, carefully maintained for both comfort and utility. Their bedding consisted of simple yet effective materials. Wool blankets, known for their warmth, were preferred for their ability to retain heat. These blankets were often stored in wooden chests, lined with straw to keep the moisture at bay. The chests themselves, made from sturdy oak, would be adorned with iron fittings, ensuring durability. Each knight would have a personal space where his belongings could be kept safe. The simple act of opening the chest would signify the beginning of the evening's relaxation. Once the blankets were retrieved, the knights would carefully lay them out, smoothing any creases to create a comfortable surface. The act of preparing one's sleeping area was a ritual of sorts, a transition from the day's exertions to the tranquility of night. Little by little, they would arrange their belongings with deliberation. Beneath the blankets, they would place a thin mattress made from layers of hay or wool, which provided a softer base for their bodies. This mattress, although not luxurious, was essential for a good night's sleep. The hay would be replaced regularly, ensuring freshness and comfort. Each knight had a specific schedule for replacing his mattress materials, usually every fortnight, to maintain hygiene and to ensure restful sleep. Oh. Soft pillows, filled with feathers or down, would be placed beneath their heads. These pillows, often hand-stitched by a family member or a skilled artisan, provided an additional layer of comfort. The gentle contouring of the pillow cradled the head, allowing for a peaceful rest. The knights would often take a moment to adjust their pillows, ensuring the perfect alignment for their necks and shoulders. The evening rituals were not merely about settling in for the night. There was also an etiquette to follow, a silent acknowledgement of each other's space and peace. The knights, while resting, would maintain a respectful silence. This was a time for reflection and quietude, allowing each man to recharge for the duties that awaited them at dawn. As the stars began to twinkle in the vast expanse above, the knights would often gather for a final moment of camaraderie. This gathering was brief, lasting no more than a quarter of an hour. They would share soft-spoken words, gentle laughter, and perhaps a final toast to their shared missions. The clinking of wooden goblets would sound like a soft melody, a reminder of the bonds they share. After the gathering, each knight would return to his own space. He would ensure his armor was carefully stored, polished, and ready for the next day. This process required patience and attention to detail, as the armor was not merely a protective layer, but a symbol of honor. Each piece of armor had its own designated place in the wooden chests, reducing the risk of wear and tear. Once the armor was secured, the knights would then take a moment to meditate. They would close their eyes and breathe deeply, focusing on the rhythm of their breath. Inhale and exhale. This calming practice helped to clear their minds of the day's events, allowing space for serene thoughts to fill their consciousness. In the stillness of the night, the sounds of nature would weave around them. The gentle rustle of leaves, the distant croaking of frogs, and the soft calls of nightbirds created a soothing symphony. These sounds were a reminder that the world continued to turn, even as they rested. As they settled into their blankets, the knights might recall the rules surrounding sleep during sieges. There were guidelines to follow, derived from necessity and experience. The approved rest periods were dictated by the need for vigilance. Knights were often permitted 3 hours of sleep at a time, ensuring that watchmen could keep an eye on the surroundings. The schedule would rotate, with designated knights taking turns to guard the camp. Those on watch would remain alert, vigilant against any potential threats. The knights on rest, however, were encouraged to maximize their sleep during these periods. They learned to fall asleep quickly using techniques passed down through generations. A knight might tuck his feet tightly into the bottom of the blanket, creating a cocoon of warmth. The gentle weight of the blanket would provide a sense of security. The knights often imagined themselves in a safe haven, far from the perils of battle. This visualization helped them drift off into a peaceful slumber. If, by chance, a knight found himself snoring, there were discreet ways to manage this. A gentle tap on the shoulder from a fellow knight could serve as a reminder to adjust one's position. It was considered polite to be mindful of one's companions during rest. Some knights developed strategies, such as sleeping on their sides, to minimize the likelihood of snoring, ensuring a tranquil environment for all. In the event that a knight awoke during the night, whether from dreams or natural disturbances, he would take a moment to reorient himself. Slowly, he would breathe deeply, allowing the air to fill his lungs. Little by little, he would become aware of the comforting sounds around him, guiding him back to a state of calm. Knights often relied on small talismans or keepsakes to bring a sense of reassurance. These items, whether a polished stone or a small token from a loved one, would be placed beneath their pillows. The weight of the objects provided comfort, acting as a tangible reminder of home and safety. As the night progressed and the moon rose higher in the sky, the knights would remain nestled in their blankets, their bodies gradually relaxing into the warmth. They would find solace in the knowledge that they were not alone. The collective nature of their rest created a protective barrier, a shared experience of tranquility amid the uncertainties of their lives. Each knight, in his own way, would embrace the stillness of the night. This was a time for rejuvenation, a necessary pause before the dawn of a new day filled with chivalrous deeds. Little by little, they would surrender to the gentle embrace of slumber, allowing the rhythm of their breath to guide them into the depths of peaceful rest. And so, the night would continue, wrapped in a blanket of calm. Each night, a part of a larger tapestry, would dream quietly of honor, valor, and the bonds of brotherhood that tied them together. The ongoing cycle of rest and vigilance, sleep and duty, would persist, ever gentle, ever constant. As dawn approached, the knights knew their rest was but a temporary reprieve. Still, the importance of this time could not be overstated. Each knight had his own routine, a series of steps meticulously followed to ensure both comfort and preparedness for the day ahead. After a night's sleep, the first task upon waking would be the gentle stretching of their limbs. This was done slowly and gently, as they lifted their arms over their heads, arching their backs to ease the stiffness from their bodies. The knights would then rise from their warm beds, often made of simple wooden frames topped with straw mattresses. The mattresses, filled with clean, dried straw, provided a layer of softness. They would carefully shake out the loose straw, allowing the grains to settle once more into place, maintaining their comfort for the next night. This ritual of care was essential, not only for their sleep, but also for the overall hygiene of their living quarters. Next, the knights would engage in a morning routine of personal grooming. Each knight would have his own small wooden comb, often carved with intricate designs, found in a small leather pouch. They would take a moment to comb through their hair, ensuring it was tidy. The act of grooming served as a soothing morning ritual, a way to prepare the mind and body for the day's duties. Following this, they would wash their faces with cool water from a nearby basin. The water, kept in a sturdy clay pitcher, would be drawn from a well or a nearby stream. The refreshing splash would awaken their senses, and they would take a moment to appreciate the simple pleasure of clean water. This act was often paired with the soft sound of rustling clothing as they donned their tunics, garments made from wool or linen, which were both durable and warm. As the knights prepared for their day, they would gather in the great hall for a modest breakfast. The meal often consisted of coarse bread, perhaps 2 or 3 days old, which was still edible and filling. This bread would be accompanied by a small portion of cheese, generally made from goat's or cow's milk, and sometimes a few pickled vegetables. The knights would eat while seated at long wooden tables, sharing the warmth of fellowship and camaraderie. The meal was taken at a leisurely pace, allowing for conversation and the sharing of stories. This nurturing of bonds was essential, for it reinforced their sense of unity and purpose. After breakfast, each knight would prepare for the tasks that lay ahead, whether that was training, patrol, or attending to the needs of their lord. All of these activities were governed by a strict schedule, observed to maintain order and efficiency. The knights would have a designated time for practice, typically at sunrise when the light was gentle and the air crisp. They would gather in the courtyard, where wooden swords and shields were neatly stored. Each weapon would be polished and checked for readiness, ensuring that every knight was prepared for both training and the potential challenges of their day. Training itself was a blend of discipline and camaraderie. They would engage in exercises designed to improve their strength and agility. These varied from running laps around the courtyard to practicing footwork with wooden weapons. Each exercise would be repeated several times, allowing the knights to hone their skills gradually. After a rigorous morning of training, the knights would often take a brief respite. This rest period was essential, as it allowed them to regain their energy before continuing with the duties of the day. During this time, they might sip on a simple herbal infusion made from dried leaves and flowers, which would be steeped in hot water. This pleasant beverage would be enjoyed in small ceramic cups, each sip bringing warmth and relaxation. Gao. As the day progressed, the knights would find themselves tending to their armor and weapons, a task that required patience and meticulous attention to detail. Each piece of armor would be inspected for wear and tear, ensuring that it remained functional and protective. The knights would use small tools, often handcrafted, to repair any damaged components. The process of maintaining armor involved cleaning, polishing, and sometimes reforging parts that had become weak over time. This work was often done in the forge, where the clanging of hammer against metal would echo softly. The warmth of the fire provided comfort on cooler days, and the scent of heated iron filled the air, creating a sense of industrious calm. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the courtyard, the knights would gather once more to share the evening meal. This meal would often be heartier than breakfast, featuring stews made from local game or vegetables, seasoned with herbs. The preparation of this meal was a communal effort, with each knight contributing what they could. Following dinner, the knights would engage in a variety of evening activities. Some would choose to practice their skills further, while others might share stories or play simple games, all the while ensuring the atmosphere remained relaxed and pleasant. The importance of these shared moments could not be understated. They were a crucial aspect of maintaining morale and cohesion. As night settled in, the knights would once again prepare for sleep. They would slowly wind down, ensuring their minds were at ease. The act of writing in small leather-bound journals was common, where they would document their thoughts and experiences from the day. The rhythmic scratching of quills against parchment created a soothing sound, contributing to the calm atmosphere. Finally, as the knights prepared for bed, they would take a moment to reflect on the day, expressing silent gratitude for the bonds they shared and the duties they fulfilled. This practice of reflection was a peaceful way to transition into sleep, allowing their thoughts to settle like the dust of the day. Little by little, they would close their eyes, surrendering to the gentle pull of slumber, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new duties, and new moments of shared experience. The cycle of rest and activity continued, gentle and unhurried, ever so constant. Yes. The following morning, as the first light crept gently over the horizon, the knights would awaken in their beds, ready to begin another day. The soft rustle of woolen blankets would accompany their slow movements as they stretched and shifted to shake off the remnants of sleep. Little by little, they would rise, taking care to keep their movements quiet and unhurried, mindful of their comrades still resting. The knights understood that the importance of rest extended beyond personal comfort. It was essential for maintaining focus and strength in their daily tasks. As they prepared for the day ahead, They would begin with a simple routine of personal grooming. They would use small wooden combs and soft cloths, often soaked in water, to tidy their hair and freshen their faces. Each stroke of the comb was deliberate and soothing, a rhythmic motion that could almost lull them back to sleep. Next, they would dress in layers, starting with a linen shirt that hugged the skin comfortably. The linen was often produced in local workshops, known for its durability and breathability. The shirt would be followed by a woolen tunic, which provided warmth. The tunic was typically belted at the waist with a sturdy leather cord, a simple yet effective method of ensuring a proper fit. Once dressed, the knights would make their way to the common area for breakfast. The communal space was a large hall, often filled with the faint scent of wood smoke and the lingering aroma of the previous night's fire. Here, a long wooden table would be laid out with simple fare: freshly baked bread, bowls of porridge, and perhaps a platter of cheese or dried meats. The bread, usually made from coarse grains, would be cut into thick slices, enough to fill a knight's belly for a long morning of duties. They would dip the bread into warm porridge, allowing it to soak up the smooth, creamy texture. As they ate, the sound of quiet conversation would fill the air, a gentle murmur of camaraderie, punctuated by the clinking of wooden bowls. After breakfast, the knights would engage in their daily training. This was a disciplined routine designed to sharpen their skills. They would practice with swords, shields, and other equipment, taking turns in pairs. Each swing of the sword was measured and precise, taking care to avoid harsh sounds that might disturb the tranquility of the morning. Training would often last several hours, with periodic breaks for water and rest. The water would come from large wooden buckets filled from a nearby well. Each knight would take small sips, allowing themselves to stay hydrated while maintaining their focus. Little by little, as the sun rose higher in the sky, the knights would feel invigorated by their practice, yet they understood the importance of balance. Once training concluded, a light midday meal would follow. This meal was typically more substantial than breakfast, featuring stews made from local vegetables and herbs, simmered slowly to bring out their flavors. The knights would gather once more around the long table, sharing stories and laughter, while enjoying the warmth of the food. The stews were often served in wooden bowls, each knight taking care to fill theirs just enough to savor the rich taste without overindulging. They would use simple wooden spoons, their surfaces smoothed by years of use. The act of eating together was a reminder of their bond, a shared experience that tied them to each other. Following their meal, the knights would have a designated period for rest. This time was crucial for their mental and physical well-being. They would find quiet corners of the hall, or retreat to their individual chambers. In chambers, the knights would often lie down on their straw-filled mattresses, taking care to adjust their woolen blankets to ensure comfort. The straw was a common choice for bedding, offering a degree of warmth, while also being an economical solution. As they settled in, silence would envelop them, broken only by the occasional soft rustle of the blankets. During this time of rest, some knights would choose to meditate quietly. They would close their eyes, focusing on their breathing, inhaling slowly and exhaling gently. This practice was known to help clear the mind, preparing them for the tasks that lay ahead. Others might spend this time reviewing their plans for the day, recalling details of their duties and responsibilities. Around the midday hour, the knights would convene once more, this time to discuss strategies and upcoming endeavors. This meeting was a blend of formal and informal dialogue, each knight taking care to listen attentively to the others. They would gather in a circle, seated on sturdy wooden benches, their expressions calm and focused. Each knight would contribute their thoughts, ensuring everyone was included in the discussions. Throughout the day, the knights would also be attentive to the needs of their horses. Grooming was a cherished routine, often taking place in the tranquil stables. They would brush the horses with gentle strokes, using stiff brushes made of natural fibers, followed by softer brushes for sensitive areas. The horses, in return, would nuzzle against their caretakers, creating an atmosphere of mutual respect and calm. The knights understood that their connection with their horses was a vital part of their daily lives, a bond that required nurturing, just like their own relationships with one another. As they worked side by side, they would often share soft words of encouragement, fostering an environment of trust and companionship. As the day transitioned into evening, the knights would prepare for supper. This meal would often include hearty soups, roasted meats, and seasonal vegetables. The preparation was a communal effort, with the knights taking turns to help in the cooking process. They would chop vegetables with wooden knives, the rhythmic thud against the wooden boards creating a peaceful symphony. Once supper was served, they would gather at the table, the flickering candlelight casting soft shadows on the walls. The warmth of the meal, combined with the laughter and stories shared, created a cozy atmosphere. Each knight would savor the flavors, taking their time to enjoy the bounty before them. After supper, the knights would often gather by the fire, sharing tales of valor and friendship. The glow of the flames would wrap them in warmth as they leaned back in their chairs, allowing their thoughts to drift. Little by little, the day would begin to wind down. They would reflect on their experiences, their voices soft and soothing as they recounted the happenings of the day. As night fell once again, the knights would follow their established routine for preparation for sleep. Ensuring the hall was quiet, they would take care to extinguish any remaining flames carefully, allowing the gentle glow of embers to comfort them as they settled into their beds. And so, the cycle would continue. A gentle rhythm of activity and rest, a dance of camaraderie that defined their days. Little by little, they would close their eyes, surrendering to the embrace of sleep, knowing that tomorrow would follow the same soothing path. They would drift into dreams, buoyed by the knowledge that they were not alone, their bonds secure, their spirits at peace. As the nights settled into their evening routines, there was a quiet efficiency to their actions. Each knight, in his own way, prepared for the night ahead. The first task was to ensure their armor was properly cared for, a ritual in itself. They would unbuckle their greaves and cuisses, gently placing them on wooden pegs near the hearth. The sound of metal clinking softly against wood created a calming rhythm, a gentle reminder of the day's labors. The knights would then turn to their swords, the trusted companions that had shared so many adventures. Each sword was meticulously cleaned using a soft cloth, often made of linen, and a mixture of oil and melted beeswax. This mixture would protect the blade from rust, ensuring it remained sharp and ready. The process took time, allowing them to reflect, to breathe deeply, and to let the tension of the day slip away. In the flickering firelight, the sound of the cloth gliding over metal was soothing. It was a sound that spoke of care, of respect for the tools that served them. Little by little, the knights would arrange their weapons in a neat row, each in its rightful place, ensuring they were easily accessible should the need arise. Next came the preparation of their sleeping quarters. Each night had a simple cot, lined with a woolen blanket, woven with care by the hands of skilled artisans. The cots were positioned with consideration, allowing for ample space between them to maintain a sense of privacy and calm. The knights would fold their blankets down, preparing a soft layer to welcome them into restful slumber. As they settled in, they would often place a small wooden tray beside their bed. This tray held a simple earthenware cup filled with cool water. The water was a refreshing companion through the night, ensuring they remained hydrated after a long day. This practice was essential, for a hydrated knight was a sharp knight, able to respond and react with clarity. Slowly, they would remove their tunics, often made from sturdy wool, and don a simpler garment for sleep, usually made from linen. Linen was favored for its lightness, allowing the skin to breathe, a gentle fabric that felt soft against the body. This was an important consideration, as comfort was key to a restful night. As the knights nestled into their cots, the atmosphere in the hall would shift. The air would grow still, the gentle crackling of the fire becoming the only sound in the room. The knights would close their eyes, focusing on their breaths, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly. This was no mere act of sleep. It was a ritual vital to maintaining their strength for the days to come. It was also during this time that they would consider the etiquette surrounding sleep in their community. A knight was expected to respect his fellow knight's need for peace and quiet during the night. Whispers were kept to a minimum and laughter subdued, ensuring a serene environment. Each knight understood that the night would be long, and a good night's sleep was paramount to their well-being. Periodically, a knight would rise to check the embers in the hearth, ensuring they were not entirely extinguished. This was done with a careful hand, using a metal poker to gently disturb the ashes. The embers would glow softly, casting a gentle light, an assurance against the darkness outside. The collective silence was punctuated only by the sound of breathing, deep and rhythmic, a soothing symphony that enveloped the hall. Little by little, the knights would drift deeper into slumber, their bodies relaxing into the cozy embrace of their beds. As dawn began to break, the first rays of sunlight would filter through the small windows, illuminating the hall with a soft glow. The knights, still cocooned in their blankets, found it difficult to leave the warmth of their slumber. But as the sun rose higher, a new routine beckoned. Go. Bendy. Slowly, they would awaken, stretching their limbs, allowing the light to seep into their consciousness. The first sounds of the day would break the quiet, the gentle rustle of fabric as they began to prepare for the day ahead. Each night would take a moment to breathe deeply, to gather their thoughts, and ease into the rhythm of morning. Once fully awake, the knights would rise from their cots, their feet touching the cool stone floor. This was a grounding moment, one that connected them to the earth beneath them, reminding them of their place in the world. They would move slowly, as if savoring each step, taking time to adjust to the new day. In their shared space, they would gather their armor once again, meticulously donning each piece. The process of dressing was deliberate, almost meditative. They would secure their garments, tightening straps and buckles with care. Each knight had a specific way of fastening his armor, a routine that had been honed through years of practice. The knights would often exchange soft words of encouragement or share a brief moment of camaraderie. setting the tone for the day ahead. This gentle interaction was part of their morning ritual, a way to connect before the demands of the day took hold. As the sun rose higher, casting warm light across the hall, the knights would prepare their minds for the tasks ahead. They would gather around a simple wooden table, sharing bread and cheese, nourishing their bodies with sustenance for the long day. Each bite was taken slowly, allowing them to appreciate the flavors, the texture, the warmth of companionship. War, endi, soy, and thus they would begin their day, a day filled with purpose and duty, each task a continuation of the rhythms that defined their lives. Little by little, they would engage in their duties, moving through a world steeped in tradition, respect, and the quiet understanding of their roles. Each moment, calm and deliberate, a testament to the lives they led. This hero Shane say, "Yo." As the day unfolded, the knights would find themselves in the midst of a carefully structured routine that allowed for both duty and rest. After the morning meal, the tasks ahead were often marked by a gentle rhythm. Each knight had a designated role, a purpose that echoed through the halls of the castle. The blacksmith would begin his day early, his forge glowing softly as he prepared tools for the knights. The sound of hammer striking metal filled the air, a lullaby of industry that resonated with the steady heartbeat of castle life. It was not uncommon for the knights to visit the forge, admiring the craftsmanship of their weapons and armor. They would observe the blacksmith as he worked, appreciating the precision with which he wielded his tools. Why? The anvil was a sturdy piece of iron, set firmly upon a wooden stump, each strike sending a faint tremor through the ground. The temperature of the forge could reach over 1,000 degrees, yet the blacksmith remained calm and composed, expertly managing the flames. This process required careful measurement. The ratio of iron to carbon had to be just right to ensure the strength of each blade. Little by little, he would measure, pour, and shape, ensuring every sword and shield was both functional and beautiful. Once the weapons were complete, the knights would begin their training routines. They would gather in the training yard, a designated space paved with firm cobblestones. The sun would filter through the trees, casting dappled shadows upon the ground. Each knight would carry his sword, a weight they had grown accustomed to. They would practice footwork and stances, their movements slow and deliberate, emphasizing control and technique. The training would last for several hours, a period of focus and discipline. After this intensive practice, the knights would often allow themselves a brief respite, a chance to recover before the next duty's call. This rest period was crucial. It was during these moments of calm that they could recharge, both physically and mentally. The knights understood the importance of rest, and they adhered to their own unwritten regulations regarding sleep. Each knight had a personal space within the castle, often a small chamber adorned with simple furnishings. The bed, made of sturdy oak, was covered with a woolen blanket, providing warmth against the evening chill. A single window would allow the soft glow of the moon to illuminate the room, filling it with a gentle light. As they prepared for sleep, the knights would engage in a calming ritual. They would remove their armor, piece by piece, taking care to place each component in its designated spot. This process was methodical, almost meditative. The breastplate was hung on a sturdy hook, the sword placed within easy reach, should the need arise. Each knight would take a moment to reflect, allowing the day's events to settle like dust upon the shelves of memory. Before the night enveloped their chambers, Some knights would practice the art of quietude. They would lay back on their beds, allowing their bodies to sink into the softness of the mattress. To avoid the potential disturbances of snoring during a siege, they would employ various techniques. Some knights would position themselves on their sides, while others would gently elevate their heads with a small pillow. A soft breeze would often waft through the window, carrying with it the scent of the surrounding fields. The knights would breathe deeply, inhaling the fresh air, allowing themselves to relax into the embrace of the night. This calm atmosphere was essential for a proper rest, a reprieve from the rigors of their daytime duties. The schedules of the knights were not solely dictated by their training and duties. The changing of the seasons also played a significant role in their routines. In the summer, when the days were long, they would rise with the sun, engaging in their activities early, while in the winter, the cold would encourage a slower pace. Each season brought with it a different rhythm, a different flow to their lives. During the colder months, the knights would often gather around the fireplace in the great hall, their armor removed, bodies warmed by the crackling flames. They would share stories of valor and camaraderie, the warmth of the fire creating a cozy atmosphere. As they settled into their chairs, the knights would allow the sounds of the fire to lull them into a state of relaxation. Wow! Alongside their physical training and combat readiness, the knights placed great importance on their etiquette and conduct during these gatherings. They would engage in soft-spoken discussions, allowing each member to express thoughts and ideas. This practice not only strengthened bonds, but also provided a sense of community, essential for their collective morale. As the evening progressed, it was customary for the knights to partake in a light supper, often consisting of simple fare. A bowl of stew, simmered over the fire, would be served alongside crusty bread. Each bite was taken slowly, savoring the warmth and nourishment, a comforting ritual after a long day. The knights would often gather close together, sharing their meal while recounting the day's events. This was a time to reflect, a time to unwind, allowing the day to slip away like sand through fingers. Each knight would listen intently, appreciating the stories that unfolded, the camaraderie evident in their shared laughter and gentle teasing. As the hour grew late, they would prepare for sleep, understanding the significance of a proper rest. They would return to their chambers, the sounds of the castle settling into quietude around them. Each knight would lay upon their bed, allowing their eyes to grow heavy. The soft rustle of blankets would accompany their breathing, a gentle rhythm that mirrored the peaceful stillness of the night. In the stillness, they would reflect on their duties, the honor of their roles, and the gentle embrace of sleep that awaited them. Little by little, they would drift into a restful slumber, their bodies replenishing strength for the tasks of the morrow. The world outside would grow quiet, the stars twinkling softly above, a serene backdrop to the lives of those who served with dignity and purpose. And so, each night would surrender to the night, the calming embrace of sleep enveloping them, allowing for the renewal of their spirit and the continuation of their chivalrous journey. As the first light of dawn would gently illuminate the stone walls of the castle, the knights would awaken from their nightly repose. The soft sounds of morning would filter through the narrow windows, inviting the day to unfold. Each knight would rise from their slumber, stretching slowly, feeling the warmth of their blankets begin to dissipate. The air would be cool, crisp, and refreshing, a reminder of the night's restorative embrace. In the early morning hours, a knight's routine was methodical and precise. Slowly and gently, they would don their garments, beginning with a simple linen tunic, perhaps dyed in a subdued hue, a color that spoke of their noble lineage. The tunic would often be secured at the waist with a leather belt, its sturdy texture providing both function and a semblance of style. Once dressed, each knight would proceed to the armory. The armory, a cool, shadowy place filled with the scent of oiled leather and polished metal, would be a sanctuary of sorts. Here, the knights would meticulously choose their weapons and armor for the day ahead. They would select a breastplate, carefully inspecting it for any signs of wear. The breastplate, forged from tempered steel, would be a labor of craftsmanship, often adorned with engravings depicting their family's crest. Next, the knights would fasten their greaves, those protective coverings for their shins. Each greave would be fitted snugly, allowing for both mobility and defense. The knights would take their time, ensuring that every piece of armor was properly assembled. The process would be deliberate, often accompanied by the soft sounds of metal clinking against metal, a soothing symphony of preparation. Isa! After the armory, the knights would make their way to the castle kitchen, where the day's first meal awaited. The kitchen, bustling with activity, would be filled with the rich aromas of freshly baked bread and simmering porridge. Knights would gather around a long wooden table, its surface polished from years of use. They would take their seats, the wooden chairs creaking softly beneath them as they settled in. Breakfast was an important ritual, a time for nourishment and camaraderie. Each knight would receive a bowl of porridge, its texture creamy and warm. The porridge, made from oats, would be thickened to perfection, often sweetened with honey or seasoned with a pinch of salt. A loaf of bread, still warm from the oven, would be passed around, the crust crackling softly as they tore into it. The knights would take their time with each bite, savoring the sustenance that would fuel their bodies for the day. Conversations would flow easily, the sound of laughter and gentle banter filling the air. They would discuss the day's objectives, sharing thoughts on the training to come, or the responsibilities that awaited them within the castle walls. After their meal, knights would often engage in a brief period of reflection. This quiet time would be filled with breathing exercises, allowing them to center their thoughts and prepare for the challenges ahead. This practice would help to ground them, to focus on their duties, and remember the codes of chivalry that guided their actions. With routines established, the knights would move towards their training grounds, where the sounds of clanging swords and the shuffling of feet would resonate throughout the courtyard. The training was rigorous yet essential, designed to hone their skills in both combat and strategy. Each knight would practice his swordsmanship, the weight of the blade becoming an extension of his arm. The wooden practice swords would be used, ensuring safety while still allowing for the development of technique. The training would last for several hours, with breaks interspersed for water and rest. During these pauses, knights would gather in small groups, discussing the techniques they had practiced. They would share insights, slowly and gently, ensuring that knowledge flowed freely among them. As midday approached, the knights would return to the castle for their next meal. The dining hall would be filled with sunlight, streaming through large windows that overlooked the courtyard below. The table would be laid with simple yet hearty fare, perhaps a vegetable stew, rich with flavors of root vegetables and herbs, accompanied by more of that beloved bread. During this meal, a defined etiquette was observed. Each knight would wait to be seated until the lord of the castle had taken his place at the head of the table. They would eat with measured grace, using wooden utensils that had been crafted by the village artisans. Conversations would remain light, discussing the day's events, the weather, and the upcoming tournaments. Once the meal was completed, a brief period of rest would follow. Knights would be encouraged to find a quiet corner of the hall, perhaps near a window where gentle breezes could provide comfort. Here, they would take a moment to reflect, perhaps closing their eyes for just a few moments, allowing their minds to settle. With the afternoon sun climbing higher, the knights would resume their duties. Some would assist in the stables, tending to their steeds, while others would engage in strategy meetings, discussing upcoming battles or local disputes that required resolution. Each task was approached with diligence, knowing that every detail played a part in the greater tapestry of their lives. As evening approached, the knights would gather once more for their final meal of the day. This meal often consisted of roasted meats, generously seasoned herbs, and root vegetables. Again, the atmosphere would be filled with laughter and stories shared, each knight recounting tales of valor and bravery, but always in a manner that was soft and comforting. As the day wound down, the knights would return to their chambers. They would prepare for sleep, allowing their bodies and minds to unwind from the day's exertions. The process of settling down for the night was a calming one. Each knight would light a small candle, watching the flame flicker gently in the dim light. They would lay their armor aside, carefully polishing any tarnished areas, ensuring that it would be ready for the next day. The act of polishing would be rhythmic, each stroke of the cloth a soothing motion that prepared them for rest. Guy. Once the armor was set aside, they would take a moment to reflect on their day. Slowly and gently, they would think of their accomplishments, their growth, and the bonds forged with their fellow knights. As they settled into bed, the soft blankets would embrace them, wrapping them in warmth and security. Little by little, their eyelids would grow heavy, the soft sounds of the castle settling into the night surrounding them. Each night would surrender to the gentle pull of sleep, knowing that their dreams would be filled with honor and the promise of another day to serve. And so, with the flicker of the candlelight dancing softly, the knights would let go of the day, the peaceful embrace of slumber enveloping them, bringing the quiet solace that only night can provide. During the quiet hours of the night, the knights would find themselves in a state of tranquility, their minds drifting slowly as they prepared for the next day's duties. As dawn approached, the routine would begin seamlessly, a gentle alignment of actions crafted over years of dedication. Each knight would rise, feeling the cool air of the castle fill their lungs, refreshing yet calming. The task would be to tend to their personal hygiene, an essential part of daily life in the medieval period. They would fill a small basin with water, the sound of the liquid pouring soothing and rhythmic. This water, often drawn from a well, would be cool to the touch, a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the blankets they had just left behind. With a cloth, they would gently wash their faces and hands, the fabric soaking up the water and the daily grime of their chivalrous endeavors. The act of cleansing would be a ritual, a moment to reflect, to wash away the remnants of sleep and prepare for the day's challenges. After their refreshing wash, the knights would attend to their hair. Using a simple wooden comb, they would carefully untangle any knots, each stroke bringing clarity and calmness. The comb would glide through the strands, making soft, whispering sounds as it moved, a gentle reminder of the importance of appearance for a knight. Next came the choice of attire for the day. Knights would often favor tunics made of wool or linen, dyed in deep hues that represented their house or allegiance. Each tunic was tailored to ensure comfort and mobility, essential for the day's tasks. They would pull the fabric over their heads, feeling the soft texture against their skin. As they donned their tunics, they would carefully check for any signs of wear or damage. A knight's appearance was a reflection of their honor and duty, and they would attend to any small repairs with a needle and thread, mending seams and closing small tears. Once dressed, the knights would gather their armor, a process that was both methodical and tranquil. One by one, they would reach for the pieces, feeling the cold metal against their fingers. The armor, made from iron or steel, would be heavy yet reassuring, a protection against the world outside. They would start with the breastplate, carefully adjusting the leather straps that held it in place. The sound of the leather creaking softly would fill the air, a familiar and comforting noise. Then, they would attach the greaves, sliding them over their legs, ensuring a snug fit. Each piece would be checked for comfort, as mobility was vital. Next, the knights would don their gauntlets, the articulated fingers allowing for dexterity while providing necessary protection. As they secured the final straps, they would take a moment to breathe deeply, appreciating the weight of their armor, a symbol of their commitment to chivalry and valor. Once fully dressed, the knights would proceed to the armory, where their weapons awaited. The swords and lances would be displayed on wooden racks, meticulously arranged for easy access. They would select their swords with care, feeling the balance in their hands. The blade, polished to a bright sheen, would reflect the early morning light, casting delicate patterns on the stone floor. Each knight would perform a brief inspection of their weapon, checking for any imperfections. A small whetstone would be used to sharpen the edge, the gentle rasping sound echoing softly in the quiet armory. This act was not merely practical. It was a ritual of focus, honing their skills as they prepared for the day ahead. Once their weapons were ready, the knights would gather in a common area. Here, they would partake in a light breakfast, which was often simple yet nourishing. A wooden table would be set, covered with coarse bread, cheese, and perhaps a small bowl of porridge. They would sit together, sharing stories and laughter. The atmosphere relaxed and inviting. This camaraderie was essential, a time to bond and reinforce their brotherhood. As they enjoyed their meal, they would also discuss the day's schedule, each night taking turns to voice their thoughts on the tasks ahead. The sound of their voices, a gentle murmur, would blend harmoniously with the clinking of wooden dishes. Once the meal was finished, the knights would rise from the table, clearing their dishes with a calm efficiency. They would stack the bowls and cups, returning them to their designated places, ensuring everything was tidy and in order. Following the meal, the knights would engage in a brief period of training. This was a daily routine, designed to maintain their physical prowess and hone their skills. They would step outside into the fresh morning air, the cool breeze brushing against their skin, invigorating yet gentle. In the training yard, they would practice their swordsmanship, each movement deliberate and focused. The sound of metal clashing would resound softly, a rhythmic echo that blended with the natural sounds of the castle grounds. Each knight would take turns sparring with one another, their movements fluid and graceful, like a dance between honor and skill. they would focus on their breathing, taking deep breaths between strikes, allowing themselves to center their minds and bodies. As the training session came to a close, the knights would gather together once more, taking a moment to reflect on their practice. They would offer words of encouragement, reinforcing their bonds and celebrating each other's progress. With their morning training complete, they would return to their chambers briefly, allowing themselves a few moments of quiet reflection. They would remove their armor once more, placing it carefully in designated storage areas, ensuring it was protected and ready for future use. This storage was often a cool, dry place, lined with straw or cloth to prevent rusting and deterioration. Each piece would be hung or laid out methodically, preserving the integrity of their cherished armor. As the day continued, the knights would often take short breaks, especially during long hours of watch or preparation. These pauses were essential, allowing them to maintain their focus and energy. During these breaks, they would find small corners of the castle to rest, perhaps a sunlit nook or a quiet stone bench. They would close their eyes briefly, allowing their minds to wander, their bodies to relax. Little by little, they would melt into a state of calm, taking a moment to recharge before the next task. The gentle rhythm of life in the castle, the soft sounds of the world outside, would serve as a comforting backdrop, guiding them gently into their next endeavor. Oh, why, noi, ow, ah. As the afternoon light waned, the nightly routine of rest continued with gentle precision. Each knight understood the importance of a scheduled nap, a brief respite to maintain their stamina. The recorded regulations outlined the need for this rest, often termed the noble pause. This pause was typically allotted for 15 minutes, a short duration, yet a crucial one. During this time, knights would find their way to the quietest corners of their stronghold. They might choose a small alcove, perhaps adorned with a tapestry depicting their lord's crest. Soft fabrics hung on the stone walls, absorbing the sounds of the bustling castle life, creating an atmosphere of peace. Knights would lay down their padded cloaks, ensuring a soft barrier between themselves and the cold stone beneath. This cloak, often made of wool, would be folded neatly, a part of their resting ritual. Once settled, the knights would close their eyes, allowing their breathing to slow. They were reminded to breathe deeply, filling their lungs fully, then exhaling softly. Little by little, they would let go of the day's burdens, entering a realm of tranquil rest. In this serene state, they would practice a technique to prevent snoring. It was believed that keeping the tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth while relaxing the jaw could minimize unwanted sounds. The knights, surrounded by fellow warriors, would often engage in this practice together, sharing a light camaraderie even in their moments of repose. This shared experience fostered a bond, reinforcing the calm nature of their environment. After their brief slumber, they would awaken gently, allowing themselves a moment to readjust to the world around them. Slowly, they would sit up, stretching their limbs to relieve any tension that had built during their pause. The sound of a distant bell could often be heard, a gentle reminder that their allotted time was coming to an end. This bell chimed slowly, a series of soft notes that floated through the air, signaling the return to duty. The timekeeper, often a squire or page, was responsible for these signals. They would keep track of the minutes, ensuring that no knight was overly indulgent in their rest. Once the bell chimed, the knights would rise, folding their cloaks with care. They would smooth out any wrinkles, ensuring that their attire remained dignified, even in moments of relaxation. The knights understood the value of appearance. After all, they were often expected to present themselves with honor and respect. Their armor would await them, polished and gleaming, a testament to their readiness. During this time of rest, the knights might also attend to small tasks. They would check their gear, making sure everything was in place. Each piece of equipment had its designated space, a meticulous system of organization. Swords would be placed in their scabbards, and shields would be hung on the wall, each in a specific order, often according to size or importance. This order was not merely aesthetic. It allowed for quick access during times of need. Little by little, the knights would ensure that all was as it should be, ready for any unexpected occurrence. After the bell, the knights would gather in the main hall, where they would share thoughts and experiences from their day. Here, they might also partake in light refreshments. The food served was often quite simple, prepared by the castle's cooks. Bread, cheese, and perhaps a small portion of fruit constituted their fare. Meals were taken in a relaxed manner, with each knight savoring their sustenance quietly. It was a time for replenishing strength and camaraderie, an integral part of their daily lives. As they dined, the knights would also discuss the upcoming training sessions or tournaments, though this was done in a low and gentle tone, respecting the need for calm. The practice of a communal meal fostered a sense of unity, allowing for a moment of reflection and rest before the next task. Once the meal ended, the knights would again prepare for their duties. They would return to their armor, donning it with care. Each piece would be secured in place, ensuring it fits snugly, allowing for freedom of movement. The process of dressing in armor was methodical. It required careful attention to detail. Each knight would start with the undergarments, often made of linen, to provide comfort beneath the metal. Next came the chainmail, interlocking rings of metal that offered protection while still allowing flexibility. Little by little, each layer would build upon the last, a ritual of strength and preparation. The final pieces, the breastplate and greaves, would be fastened with leather straps. These straps needed to be adjusted properly, ensuring a secure fit. As the last piece of armor was secured, the knight would take a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the weight of their gear settle upon them. They would remind themselves of the importance of their role, the duty they held. Once fully dressed, the knights would gather once more, sharing a brief moment of silence. This solemn pause allowed them to center their thoughts and focus on the tasks ahead. The rituals of preparation, rest, and community were deeply woven into the fabric of their lives. Each step was vital, creating a rhythm that sustained them through the rigors of their day. In this way, the knights navigated their world, balancing duty with moments of rest, ever mindful of the need for calm amidst the demands of their lives. Little by little, they found their way through each day, guided by the gentle ebb and flow of the routines they had come to cherish. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a gentle glow over the land, the knights understood the importance of rest. They had a schedule to follow, a rhythm to maintain. Their days were meticulously planned, with allocated times for training, feasting, and, importantly, resting. Each knight knew that proper rest was essential to their physical and mental well-being, especially when faced with the demands of their chivalrous duties. The medieval, Nightly nap regulations were surprisingly detailed. A knight could expect to find a designated space for rest within the castle's walls. This space was often shared, a communal area where knights would lay down their arms and armor and settle onto simple straw-filled mattresses covered with woolen blankets. Each mattress was approximately 6 feet long, allowing ample room for the average knight to stretch out. Pillows were a luxury, yet many knights would carry a small rolled-up cloth filled with soft materials, perhaps feathers or dried grasses. This light pillow could be placed under their heads, offering a touch of comfort during their brief periods of rest. The straw mattresses would be layered on wooden planks, creating a barrier from the cold ground. The knights were taught the importance of maintaining their resting areas. Each knight was responsible for ensuring that their space remained tidy. They would take turns fluffing the straw, adjusting the blankets, and keeping the area free from dirt or debris. This simple act of care was crucial in fostering a sense of community and mutual respect among the knights. In terms of timing, the regulations specified that knights should take their naps in the early afternoon. This period was known as the hour of repose, a time when the sun was high and the world outside was often quiet. The hour of repose lasted for 1 full hour, beginning at noon and ending at 1 o'clock. During this hour, knights would often retreat to their nap spaces after a hearty meal. They would first wash their hands and faces with cool water from a basin, refreshing themselves before resting. The act of cleansing was not only practical but also symbolic, a way to wash away the toils of the morning. Once settled, the knights would take off their boots, allowing their feet to breathe. This small act was vital, for the boots were often heavy and constricting, made from thick leather. Removing them would not only provide comfort, but also allow for better circulation, preparing their bodies for the tasks ahead. The knights would then lay back, closing their eyes softly. They understood the importance of silence during this time. Each knight would practice calming their minds, focusing on their breathing, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly. As they drifted into a light slumber, they were taught to be mindful of their surroundings. Quietness was key. Snoring could disrupt the rest of others. To avoid such disturbances, knights would often practice a technique known as silent breathing. This method involved inhaling through the nose and exhaling softly through pursed lips. Oh, day. The guidelines suggested that if a knight found it difficult to remain silent during their rest, they might utilize a small piece of cloth known as a snore muffler. This muffler was placed gently over the mouth, dampened slightly to soften any sounds. During sleep, if a knight awoke during the hour of repose, they were encouraged to remain still, to take a moment to enjoy the quiet. They could listen to the gentle sounds of the castle, perhaps the distant clanging of a blacksmith's hammer, or the soft rustle of leaves in the castle gardens. This stillness served as a reminder of the peace that came before the demands of the day resumed. At the end of the hour, a bell would ring, signaling the end of the nap. It was a simple bell, made of polished brass, its sound clear and resonant. Knights would wake slowly, stretching their limbs, allowing their bodies to awaken gently. They would sit up on their mattresses, taking a moment to gather their thoughts. This transition from sleep to wakefulness was important. Knights would spend a few minutes reflecting on their dreams, or simply enjoying the calm before re-engaging with their duties. Once the hour was complete, knights would don their boots once more, fastening the laces securely. They would adjust their tunics, ensuring that they looked presentable before rejoining their fellow knights. During their time off, knights were expected to engage in quiet activities that promoted relaxation and camaraderie. They might share a soft-spoken conversation about their training or the upcoming jousts, ensuring their words were calming and measured. The etiquette of speaking during rest periods was emphasized. Gentle voices were preferred to maintain the tranquil atmosphere. Laughter, while welcome, was to be soft, not disruptive. The essence of these moments was to promote a sense of peace and togetherness, a bond that was strengthened during these quiet times. As the knights re-entered the world of duty, they carried with them the calm of their rest. Their days were filled with the knowledge that such moments of respite were not only sanctioned, but essential. Each knight understood that a well-rested mind and body could further their prowess in battle, their capability in service, and their commitment to chivalry. And so, little by little, the rhythms of their lives continued. Each day, the routines would repeat, creating a tapestry of calm and purpose. They would don their armor, engage in training, take their scheduled rest, and return to their duties. Each act flowed into the next, a gentle reminder of the balance between action and peace. Dion, in this gentle exploration, we have drifted through the subtle regulations surrounding the rest periods of medieval knights. We learned about the careful scheduling of naps, the approved times for repose between noble deeds, and the soft whispers of etiquette that guided how not to disturb others during these moments of rest. Little by little, we have delved into the calming rituals of preparing for sleep, the soft rustling of bedding, and the quietude of a knight's chamber, where the world outside faded away. As we close our eyes, imagine a serene room, softly lit by the glow of candlelight, where the weight of the day melts away, and every breath invites tranquility. Feel your body relax, settling into the comforting embrace of your pillow. If you found this exploration soothing, please remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And softly, a gentle reminder to turn on loop so the calm can continue. Why is in Dawn and Shan. Oh.